Earlier today, I notified Bibb County Sheriff David Davis that my office has cleared deputies Christopher Williams and Christopher Scuderi of any criminal wrongdoing in the June 2nd use of force incident involving Shamir D'Angelo Terry. Both deputies fired their service weapons toward Mr. Terry following an armed robbery at the Circle K convenience store at 2580 Riverside Drive. The GBI has conducted a thorough investigation of the incident, and I've been briefed on their findings. It's clear from the evidence collected that deputies Williams and Scuderi were justified in their use of deadly force against Mr. Terry, who unfortunately died of his wounds. The Bibb County Sheriff's Office has obtained murder and armed robbery warrants against India Whitson for her part in the robbery that resulted in Mr. Terry's death. To be clear, Ms. Whitson is presumed to be innocent unless and until proven guilty in a court of law. My comments today have no bearing on her case, and I'll be limited in what I can say due to her pending prosecution. Facts considered in the determination regarding the two deputies include: a witness in the parking lot outside the Circle K saw a man pointing a gun at a store clerk in an apparent armed robbery at about 10:45 p.m. He flagged down Deputy Williams, who had been driving nearby, and also called 911. Deputy Williams pulled into the Circle K's parking lot and saw a man who matched the description of the robber, pointing a gun toward an occupied car. Then the man, later identified as Mr. Terry, lowered his gun and walked toward the Applebee's restaurant behind the Circle K. Deputy Williams announced himself as a Bibb County deputy and told Mr. Terry to stop. Mr. Terry immediately turned around, raised his gun toward Deputy Williams and fired. The deputy took cover behind a dumpster and his patrol car as he returned to fire. Mr. Terry then headed toward Pierce Avenue, and Deputy Williams again yelled for him to stop. Mr. Terry kept on going, yelling, "I'm not going back to jail." Deputy Williams deployed his taser toward Mr. Terry, but the taser was ineffective. Mr. Terry walked out into the traffic lanes on Pierce Avenue and encountered a passing car. At about that time, Deputy Scuderi arrived in his patrol vehicle. Both deputies saw Mr. Terry raise a gun toward the car and feared for the safety of the motorist. They fired at Mr. Terry, striking him multiple times, while Mr. Terry fired in their direction. Had Mr. Terry lived, he would have been charged with armed robbery and multiple counts of aggravated assault for his assaults on customers, witnesses, and the law enforcement officers. I've reviewed surveillance footage from the store, from Applebee's, and body camera footage as a part of my review of the case. The videos support the GBI's findings and my determination that the deputies were justified. In light of the overwhelming evidence of justification, the case with regards to these deputies is closed. The investigation and prosecution of Ms. Whitson is ongoing. Are there any questions?
Do you know if the sheriff said that these deputies will be going back to work anytime soon?
I'll leave that to the sheriff. They have a policy that they follow with regard to entering deputies back into the rotation once they've been involved in an incident of deadly force, but that will be for his determination. But I have let him know that I've cleared both deputies.
At this time, do we know why the taser was ineffective?
The GBI's investigation isn't complete with regard to some forensics. It's just that the evidence of justified use of force was so overwhelming, I felt compelled to go ahead and clear these officers. There are some forensic tests that have yet to be completed.
When you looked at that body cam video and surveillance and stuff, what was your reaction to that?
Honestly, I couldn't help but feel afraid for the deputies, even though I knew how it turned out. And I just couldn't help but be struck by their bravery and courage under fire in attempting to, and ultimately protecting the customers and witnesses in the area.
So both deputies fired at Terry?
Both of them did. You had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you knew how the deputies were doing at this time?
I haven't spoken to them, so I don't know exactly how they're doing right now. All I can tell you is that I'm very thankful that they both are safe you know, it's a miracle that no one else was killed in this incident.
So in other words, because of the bravery of these deputies, civilians are safe, people are safe, and that's kind of how you feel about that.
I think their bravery saved lives, yes. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, folks.